Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spira. Today's guest, Dr. Allison Kovach. She is a story of resiliency and persistence and true path to understanding who she is and what she's about. 2 years didn't get into dental school. Didn't stop her. Went to a program. Spent a year. Then got in. Then graduates, worked 3 years in basically a low-cost Medicaid mill, barely made enough to survive. But that's not going to stop her. And her story is inspirational. I enjoy speaking to her. She's got a ton of energy and exuberance. She just started her own practice. That's right, startup fee-for-service practice, May 2023, opened the doors June of 2023, and we're recording this. She's 6 weeks into practice. I can't wait to see how she's doing a month, 2 months, 6 months down the road, and we're going to have a follow-up. So please, Dr. Allison Kovach, tremendous story. I think you'll all get a lot out of it. As always, our podcast, the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast Drop, brought to you by Kettenbach Dental. I'm going to give you the number first, 877-532-2123. Remember, Kettenbach sells direct. There's no middleman. They also have local reps in your area. Kettenbach-dental.us. Check out their new product, Visalis Fill and Visalis Flow. It's a nano hybrid composite. Highly filled. It's very dense, very strong, and very good durability. Can be used anterior, posterior. Check them out. Kettenbach Dental, 877-532-2123. If you like the podcast, click like, share it with your friends. If you want to send feedback, send it to me, or you can send it to ffsdentist@gmail. That's Drew. Or you can send it to me, sonnyspira@gmail.com, or you can text me or call me 607-624-2962. I love speaking to you folks out there. Hopefully this is helping you all and giving you a good image that you can be independent and you can run your practice. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spira. Today I have a very special guest. This gal was online and I would hint to her like, hey, why don't you come on? Hey, why don't you come on? So with a little bit of prodding, but not much, we have Dr. Allison Kovach. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She is a Pennsylvania native. She recently moved from Boston back to her hometown of Erie, PA, to open up her fee-for-service startup. Let me repeat that. To open up her fee-for-service startup. Okay. After graduating from Mercyhurst with a BA in biology in 2005 and failing to get accepted into dental school for 2 cycles in a row and without a plan B, she knew she needed to do something more. So we got an achiever here, okay? This is good. This led to her to moving to Boston to obtain a master's in medical science with a concentration in oral health sciences from Boston University. Having never ventured far from hometown, she assumed she would complete her master's and move back to PA for dental school, but she fell in love with the city and decided to stay for dental school at Boston University, where she graduated in 2012. And then she continued to live in Boston and practiced outside that city for about 10 years. Dr. Allison is energized by CE, having a humble start in the profession. And now you'd be humbled by people telling you that, that's for sure. It wasn't until about 5 years into practice she began taking quality CE that have laid the foundation for how she wanted to practice the rest of her career. And we're going to get into that for sure.
The future of fee-for-service dentistry is based in membership patients. If you need help starting your membership plan, or if your plan is too big for your team to manage, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com to set up your free membership growth solution demo with our team.
She now takes about 100, 150 hours of CE. And you need, in New York State, you need, I think, 15 hours a year to do that. So she's doing 10 times the requirement in New York State. She's trained at COIS, SPEAR, the CEE, and IMPRES, which is Impress, and is excited to have her own practice where she can finally implement all of her great education she's had the last few years. Loves spending time outdoors. Prior to returning home to Erie, she spent most weekends doing coastal New England things. Now living in Lake Erie, she enjoys kayaking, paddleboarding, and cycling. Please welcome Dr. Allison Kovach. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Sonny. I'm excited to be here. I might actually be the OG listener to this podcast.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I've missed an episode.
Oh, this is it. We are going old school. I like that. I like that. So you heard when I was a guest then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did the whole Drew's building and all that, and you taking over. Yep, I've been here.
So you know it. All right. Well, you are much deeper than I am into this, so that's great. Well, I'm glad I coached you into doing this. I love your history. I love the fact that, I think people that are successful, nobody has a straight path, and you really have detailed it. And I'm definitely going to ask you, how did you really commit to that? Like, no plan B. How did you in your mind say, listen, this is what I'm going to do, and you ain't going to tell me no?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I think it was just because there was no backup. It was, I'm going to be a dentist, and there was no other option. And it was funny because that was pressure I put on myself. That wasn't my family. They just said, get good grades, go to college, do whatever you want to do. My dad was a plumber. He owned his own plumbing company. My mom worked at a small gift shop. She still does. And I think it was probably like high school, like senior year, that I was like, I thought for a long time I wanted to go into like psychiatry, psychology. Sure. Never really had any desire to go to med school. And then I was just kind of like, I don't know that I want to listen to people's problems all day. So I chose dentistry, where you never hear about anyone's problems,
no.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But I just remembered, I always loved going to the dentist. I never knew that people didn't like going to the dentist. And when I was trying to pick a profession, I was thinking, like, what is something that lets you, be in a service industry where you're taking care of people, where you get to do something, and it's not just writing a prescription and sending people on their way, and you're using your hands and you're problem solving. No. And then I just realized, like, I've always really liked the dentist. That kind of goes hand in hand. And that's kind of where it started. And it was that or bust, basically.
Was anybody encouraging to you other than family? Like any?
No, I mean, I loved my dentist growing up, as our family dentist forever. And when I was little, I used to make like little tooth crafts and like bring them into him. And but it was never like, I didn't really shadow him. I never really shadowed anybody. I think I went in maybe one time when I was in high school, or like maybe early college, where I spent a couple hours just kind of actually seeing what a dentist does, because I'd only been a patient,
Yeah.
And
were you intimidated? Yeah.
No, I think I liked that it was so hands-on. I think it was just seeing somebody do so many different things in a short period of time, and that you were interacting with patients. And like I said, I mean, that was our family dentist. My whole family went to him, and knowing that, he knew everything about us, we knew about him and his family, and just, I liked that connection. And I didn't know any other profession where you really got that.
Were you artsy?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you got that. Well, I think it's that you got that right brain going. That's what that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the creative side. And, very, very detail oriented,
Uh-huh.
meticulous. And that I think I get from my dad. His job is very precise. And growing up, that's
So,
what I just remember, like doing a good job and never cutting corners. And
yeah, I want to ask you more about that because to me, like, a plumber, a dentist, and especially if you're fee for service private practice, he's a plumber. He doesn't work for Roto Rooter. He's got his own plumbing business. He's got his name. So when he leaves a job, it's his signature there. Talk about some of the things that he shared with you growing up that still resonate with you. There's got to be some things that you saw or you experienced, or maybe now even more so doing your own thing.
yeah, for sure. It's funny. I often say I'm like 50-50. My parents split right down the center.
Sure.
And for sure, the work ethic comes from my dad. I mean, my mom's a hard worker and she,
Sure.
is very detail oriented too. But, growing up, I think I just saw how hard my dad worked. I mean, he worked 7 days a week. If he was out on jobs or home bidding jobs, and, his office was in our house. So I remember being a little kid, laying on the end of the bed while he's in his office, like telling him about my day, and, him falling asleep because it's the first time he's had a chance to sit down for the day. But, I think he built his reputation in town as being someone who was known for quality work, was known for never cutting corners, always doing the right thing, standing behind what they do. And that really shaped me and, how I do everything. I mean, anyone that comes into my office, they're just like, there's so many little details. And to me, the details matter.
Yes.
In our profession, we're at millimeters. So it's like
Yeah.
the details really matter.
Yeah. Like,
So yeah, that was a huge, huge thing. And my mom is definitely the thoughtful one, the creative, my dad's very creative too, but the combination of them, I think, like I said, I'm a 50-50 blend for sure.
Steve Rasner, right? Everything matters or nothing matters. You just.
Yeah.
So did you ever go with him on the job? Did you ever take an interest?
I don't think so. I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure I kind of tinkered around here or there. I remember going to his shop, when he moved it out of our house, and just like thinking it was so cool playing with all the parts and whatnot. And, I remember he'd always bring me home the like water heater boxes. And, there's nothing better than making like a cardboard fort out of a water heater box when you're 7,
Sure. Any little special tips like, hey, listen, don't overload inventory, or hey, listen, you're going to have trouble collecting, or just like an emergency, right? His emergencies and our emergencies are not terribly different. People are in distress and they need you right now.
Yeah. Definitely, inventory stuff. It was funny, even just, he has retired. He's kind of cherry picks a few things here and there. He came out of retirement, obviously, to build a dental office this year.
I bet you he loved it.
Yeah, that was a good deal on my part.
It's pride. I mean, that's got to be one of the happiest moments of his life.
For sure. And it's nice for me. It feels special to me too,
right.
To work in a space that my dad was so much a part of. So
yeah. That's personal. That's personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny too, which I'm sure we'll touch on, the building that I'm renting in, that I built my space. The landlord was actually my first boss that I ever had when I was 15. And there used to be a garden center at the plaza that I'm in, that I used to work in when I was 15, like my very first job ever. And our windows overlook where the garden center used to be. So it's just this like funny full circle. But when I was ordering supplies for my office, I had stored a ton of stuff at my dad's old shop. He still has the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, look at all this. So this is like 6 trucks worth of stuff. And he had to buy enough stuff so each guy on his team had the whole stock, on their truck. And he's like, all this stuff is just wasted. And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm not stocking every room. That's why we do procedure tubs. And you don't want all this stuff that expires. It's one thing if it's a PVC pipe. It's another thing if it expires in 6 or 12 months or whatever the expiration date is, and you're throwing all that away. So that was definitely a kind of a fun, his perspective, my perspective. But one of the things that he was always very surprised about, and, my dad being a small business owner, he never had dental insurance. He doesn't know what's involved with that. And when I was doing, starting this process, and he's kind of talking to me about like, oh, when you get paid and how you do billing and whatnot. And I'm telling him like, this is how insurance works. He's like, why does anybody sign up for that? And I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. So it was really interesting to see somebody who's a business owner's perspective, who has no idea, who's never dealt with insurance, and kind of see how they input that into their profession. And where it's just like, that's a terrible business move. Why would you ever do something like that?
Look at all the parallels, though. Look at all the parallels in the things that you said. No cutting corners, quality reputation. He's basically pillar in the community, and he's known for XXX, and you want to be known for Y, which is exact same thing, just with dentistry.
For sure. Yep.
So it's like anybody who thinks they can't learn from another business is ridiculous. There's so much you can learn and transport and just make it your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me. So you went to Boston University. Talk to me about the moment when you said, all right, listen, I haven't gotten in. You had 2 gap years, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I don't think I had any clue how to actually get into dental school. Mm-hmm. I also, high school was easy for me. I didn't have to study. I got A's, like that was easy. College was a totally different animal, and I did not, it wasn't easy. And I didn't know what you had to excel in. I didn't know the timeline on things, like when you should be taking the DAT and what your GPA, like I had, just whatever the book was that they give you, that's like the averages. But, nobody told me you should be taking these DAT practice courses and things like that. That was never anything I knew. And, nobody was on the internet then, not that they weren't on the internet, but the knowledge that we have and the access to these resources of like, I used this, study with this, that was not a thing. That community of knowledge wasn't there yet. And so my DAT scores were not that great. My GPA was okay, but when you're going up against the typical dental student applicant, I didn't compare. And I went to a very small liberal arts school, and we were on trimesters when I went to school there, which was weird to dental schools because to them it looked like I was taking less classes. Right. And in actuality, I was taking more, but they didn't count the labs. Otherwise, we'd graduate early. So it was just there wasn't one shining star on my application, I don't think. And so after I graduated, that following year, I went to Gannon, took a couple of courses there that weren't offered at Mercyhurst, and thought maybe that will make my application better. And then I applied again. And I think I was waitlisted. I think my first application cycle, I was waitlisted at Temple. And the guy called and said, if one person doesn't show up, we'll call you. You're the next in line. But I never got that call. And it's okay because I wasn't meant to go there.
When you're waitlisted, they're telling you you're no longer inferior. You could do this.
Sure. Right. I think it was mostly because I was an in-state person and they knew I could hop on a plane and be there. But I don't know that they had that much belief in me because the following year I didn't even get an interview. So
okay. All right.
Yeah. So I applied the following year, didn't get an interview. I think I just got rejections across the board. And now I'm like, okay, what do I do? Like there was no plan B. There wasn't anything I could even remotely picture myself doing other than being a dentist. And so I started.
Hold on right there. How did that become so deeply rooted in you?
I think once I decide something, like it's done. Like I'm all in. Like if
most people nowadays, they get hit once, they're done. They move on. Like you have a girl tries out for a basketball team in 8th grade, she gets cut. She's not going to come out her sophomore, freshman year. They're just not going to do it. I've been told I'm not good enough. It's very rare that you have a person who can deal with one hiccup, let alone 2, and now almost 3, because you're going to another program, right?
Oh, for sure.
Boston University. God bless you. I mean, you are a throwback in every way. That's awesome because resiliency is what's going to carry you through pandemics, economic bad things, insurance company, abuse, any of that stuff. You're going to be like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm above that.
Yeah. I think in my heart, I knew that this was what I was supposed to do. Like, I knew that something about me is I can relate to people. I can make people feel calm and connected to. And I knew, I mean, I didn't know the first thing about placing a filling or tooth anatomy, but I knew that I could do something good. And I knew that this was what I was supposed to be doing. I don't know why, but that's what I decided, awesome. And there was no turning back.
There was no real seminal moment. There was no like epiphany.
No, I never had any I just listened to one of the podcasts where the doctor, had this like horrible tooth pain or whatever. Yeah. Nope. That was never me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sonia. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. That's what I decided. I think, early on, I always thought like, oh, I'll be an orthodontist and everything's so colorful and organized. And, then that was a short-lived phase. But yeah, once I knew that that's what it was, I don't know, everything just clicked and there was no turning back from there.
Now, when you went to the medical sciences, master's in medical sciences, right? Did you have a shoe-in for the dental school at Boston University? Was there like a greased skid there? Or
how
did that part happen?
It's supposed to be somewhat of a pipeline program. The year that I enrolled, it was only the second year in creation, so it was not a guarantee. The first year, the year ahead of me, I think the majority of the students got accepted, maybe all but one or two didn't. It's a small class. I mean, I want to say there was 8 people in the first class, maybe not even. And only a couple people didn't get in, and they kind of continued. I think they ended up doing like you had the option to do like a library thesis or like an actual laboratory thesis. Gotcha. And I think they did a laboratory thesis, reapplied, and then they got in. So it wasn't a guarantee, and it was terrifying because you were not allowed to get lower than a B. Otherwise, you were kicked out of the program.
Yeah.
And it was $50,000. So here I am signing a check for $50,000, a loan for $50,000, knowing that I did okay, but not great in college. This is my last shot. It's wicked expensive. I have to get no lower than a B, and this is make or break it. If this doesn't happen, then I'm not getting into dental school, and I don't know where there is from here. So packed my stuff, moved to Boston. I remember so interesting, the year that I did it, like I said, it was only the second year it was happening, and they had, I think, 3 of us, maybe 3, I think, that were taking a couple classes on the med school side. And our first course that we were taking was biochemistry. And now I'm taking basically med school biochemistry. And I remember the first exam, I got up in the middle of the test to go throw up because I knew that I was failing the test. And I was like, this is like, I've blown it. I've wasted all this money. I might as well just like quit and go home. What was I thinking? And I remember after the test, you have all these like med students, and they're all talking about like, oh, it was so easy and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, like I'm way out of my league here. And I remember I was on the bus home, and my folks called and like, how did it go? Are you going to treat yourself to a Starbucks? And I just remember crying and saying like, I don't even deserve a Starbucks. I can't treat myself. I failed, and I was just like sick to my stomach for 3 days. Long story short, everybody else failed. And so they curved it, and I ended up with a C on the test, which was fine. I like aced the next one, and the instructor was like, this is the most, impressive turnaround I've seen. And she ended up writing me an incredible letter of recommendation, which aided into me getting accepted to dental school. But yeah, that was the rough start to the medical master's program.
You just described the average social media post.
Yeah.
Where everybody, oh, this was great. It was easy. I can do this. Oh, yeah, I do that every day. I do full mouth recap, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, oh, my God, I am way out of my league. Yeah. Guess what? It's all fantasy.
Yep. It's the highlight reel.
Yeah. It's not real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. Well, God bless. I mean, this is your story is truly inspiring. I love this. If there's no other reason to host this podcast, it's to meet people like yourself and hear your stories and just really appreciate how each person gets where they get or goes where they go or just has their path, you know? So it's just like your path is really interesting. So now you get into dental school. Did you have any of those other moments? At this point, you had to be really sure of yourself. Listen, no matter what life throws me, I'm getting through this.
Yeah, it was definitely, I will say, it set the trajectory where I just kind of accepted that, like, I don't get the easy hand. It's going to be it's going to be a struggle for me, and I'm going to have to work for it, and like, we'll get it in the end. Like, that's like, I would say my motto, not intentionally, but just historically. So yeah, when I got in, so the rest of the program was fine. We passed, no problems. Got accepted. So it was like a 1.5 year program, basically. So I got accepted the following year, and I had maybe like 6 months off in between, before starting dental school. And during that time, I ended up working for the Department of Public Health Dentistry for Boston University. So just like a short stint there between the master's program and actually starting school. But I felt pretty good going into dental school, having finished that program. Like, I knew that I didn't have to worry about failing out of dental school. Like, I felt like if I could do that program and I had to get grades that were a B or above, I knew that I didn't have to worry about failing out.
So,
but I mean, it's still stressful.
So now you got 4 years. So you got a $50,000 note already. I don't know what your undergrad was, but Mercyhurst, I know, is a little better for in-state than it is out of state. Still, you got 4 years undergrad. You got some classes at Gannon. You got this. Now you got dental school, which at Boston University is not inexpensive, as well as the cost of living in Boston.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does it look like when you graduate? What's your debt look like?
So yeah, this is a fun story too. So I graduated, I want to say I think I finished with 370,000 in debt. And I didn't take out the full loan every year.
11 years ago, folks. This is in 2012. This is 11 years ago. $370,000 11 years ago is probably at least 450, if not closer to 5 now. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I didn't take out the full loan every year. I worked since I was 15, so I did have some savings. I lived in a shoebox studio apartment that whole time. So rent was expensive for the shoebox, but relatively low for Boston. And, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a lot that I spent money on. So that was getting out good. What was interesting though, is my first, I would say 5 years out of school. I mean, my first really like 3 to 4 years out of school, paying the interest was a struggle. And that was, income contingent. So I think my loan payments were maybe around $1,100 a month, but my rent was, at that point I moved to a 1-bedroom. So I think my rent started at like 18 and then up to like 2,300 a month.
So your loans, you said you paid interest only.
Initially. Yeah. But what is funny is by the time from when I graduated till about year 5, paying, $1,100 to $1,200 every month, my loan was now up to $440,000. So I wasn't even touching the principal. I wasn't touching anything. Yeah. And so I was paying all that every year, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, this is terrifying. Like, what do you even do with this?
If you're Italian, you were just paying the VIG.
So I think it was like right around, I think my 5th year of practice where, some of these refinancing things started to come into play. And I remember reaching out to one of the companies that's like pretty well known. And they're like, your debt is too high. We won't refinance you. The only debt I have, Sunny, is student loan debt. I don't have any credit card debt, no other, nothing pending. But the student loan debt was so high, they wouldn't refinance my student loan. And I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, well, you can't make the payments. And I'm like, but I am already making those payments. So it was very weird. Long story short, we ended up actually having to we did like a reverse mortgage kind of thing. And so now I pay that as my student loan essentially, but that's how we got to a better interest rate and a better payment. And now I'm actually seeing, now, and I'm 11 years into practice, my loan is down to, I want to say 370. So I've made no progress in 11 years.
Oh my, you're back to
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So what you graduate dental school, what kind of job do you end up taking? Because like your cost of living, you've already said now it's not for Boston, that's not bad.
No, it wasn't initially. Yeah.
But so should your income be a little bit, relative to the area. You should be up there. You should be on the higher side of average
Yeah, I've never been on the higher side of average, as it turns out. So my first job, I actually felt very lucky coming out of school. I knew I didn't want to do a residency. I started school a little bit later. I went into school knowing I didn't want to do a residency, knowing that I needed to get as much out of that experience as I could.
You're going to squeeze that. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so I started looking for private practice positions. So in Massachusetts, they have a lot of offices that they call mass health offices. They take the mass health insurance, it's the government insurance. And when you come out as a new grad, that's pretty much what's available to you. Even when I graduated, DSOs weren't super heavy. There was a couple local ones like Dental Dreams or something like that was a big one.
Yeah, they're just picking up momentum now, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so I was very fortunate that one of our faculty members at school had opened an office, I think the year before. And he's like, I remember you stood out in clinic. How do you feel about working at this office as a general dentist? It's all the specialists under one roof. You can treat it as your own residency. You can do whatever you want to do. You cannot do whatever you want to do. We're here over your shoulder if you need us. And I was like, this sounds amazing. It was a brand new office. Like, sign me up. And I couldn't have been excited. To me, that was, my dream job at the time.
What was your pay look like? What kind of?
So bad. This is definitely, I think after a full year in that office, I was thinking, what have I gotten myself into? Like, this is not what I expected dentistry to be. I spent, so many nights on my front porch, on my stoop, just crying because I couldn't even pay my bills. And all my bills were my rent and my student loan. And I'm like, I'm 30 years old. I'm a dentist. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Like, what happened? Like, how am I here? And so that office, since it was primarily a mass health office, the reimbursement was so low. I think a filling was $50, maybe extra, and I didn't even do extractions, but they were like $50 as well. So, how do you make money? And then you're getting a percentage of that as an associate. So income was very low. I don't even think my first year, I want to say, I honestly, it was so long ago. I didn't come anywhere close to even making 100,000, which in
5 days a week.
5 days a week. Actually, I even worked 6 days a week when I first started. So, yeah. So I was making no money. And that kind of
Lincoln free the slaves.
So I stayed there. It was a nice office. The team was wonderful. I got a lot of experience. I got to
wonder what your hourly broke down to. If you think,
it was bad. I could have worked at the grocery store. I could have worked at Star Market for more money. Many a days. Yeah, many a days did I make like less than $20 an hour. It was.
But I'm getting to know you. This is not going to stop you. So okay. So you're there for how long? 2 years?
I was there for 3 years. Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Did you see any increase in your wages?
Yeah, a bit. Obviously, as I got faster and more proficient,
did your speed really pick up?
It was busy. It was a busy office. So
I'm sure it was, but did your personal speed pick up?
It did. Yeah, it definitely did. And one of the things, it was a great office. It was primarily in a Spanish speaking community. And I only knew enough Spanish to get through a dental appointment. So that was another thing that really weighed heavily on me in terms of like why I just felt so disconnected. Sure. Was that I wasn't able to have the conversations with patients. I wasn't able to make the connections.
It's the hardest thing in the world when you can't speak the language or you can't connect on a human level. That's the most frustrating.
Absolutely.
I did the implant course in Dominican Republic, and you wanted to say I'm here. I can help you. I just relax. I got you. And you're like, hand signals only go so far. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
so.
Yeah, so it got to the point where I just felt like, a pair of hands on an assembly line. And I
Where
was
did you go
naive.
from there?
I went from there to an office that was kind of like a local DSO. So it was owned by a local guy who owned maybe about 20 offices in the area when I started, and was just growing and growing from there. That office was an out of network office. So they accepted insurance, they had the copays, but they were getting, their fee essentially. And
Well,
that was
what was your arrangement there? And were you the only doc in the office?
No, I got brought on. So they had a specialist leave. There were two other general dentists, and they brought me on full time. And they did not need me full time. They needed me 2 days a week. So again, I'm sitting there not making any income, being told that like, hey, we need you so badly. And there wasn't enough patients there to, like I said, even support really more than 2 days a week there. And I
Gotcha.
was there 4 days a week, I think. So that office though was definitely kind of where I started to see a difference in how you could practice, because the other general dentist, so it was a multi-specialty practice as well. And the other general dentists there, they were doing bigger things. They were doing things that I thought were only things that specialists could do. And, they're talking about, let's do this spear study club and let's do this course. And I was just like, what's a spear? Like, what's a course? I don't know what this is. And so that's when I kind of started to see that there's different ways to do dentistry. And
Yes,
you can
there
have,
is.
yeah, a totally different mindset and the care that you provide people. And it's not, the office that I started at, when I first started there, Mass Health didn't cover fillings. So if a person needed a filling, they would say no, even if it was an occlusal. And they would say, I just want my tooth pulled. And you're just like, what the heck, And then the difference is you come to an office where people don't, not that they don't care what the insurance pays, but it wasn't the first thing on their mind. And so that's when I started to do bigger cases and more involved dentistry and joined a study club. And that's when I started to realize like, oh my gosh, like this is exciting. Like this is what it's supposed to be. So at this point, my compensation arrangement there was, I think, just a percentage of collections. But there was a lot of other stuff too. Like they made you pay the credit card fees and like silly stuff like that. And you were a 1099. So you had to run your own payroll, and like it was,
You had to pay your assistant?
no, luckily I didn't have to pay my assistant. Yeah.
You weren't a 1099.
I
That's
was not a 1099. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what did your income look like? It had to be better because you said you're doing more complicated cases.
Yeah, it was definitely better. It was still so hit or miss though. One month might be a great
feast or
month.
famine. Yeah.
Yeah, feast or famine, exactly. So it was very inconsistent. I was still living paycheck to paycheck because you didn't know what the next month was going to bring. So it wasn't until my third job, which was my final job in Massachusetts, that I had a guaranteed base salary. And like, what a luxury. And it was one of those things where, my friend kept on saying like, be careful of the golden handcuffs. And at first, like that just it was so annoying to me. It's like, it's not golden handcuffs. I like it here and, whatnot. And,
Sure.
but it's like, when you know that you need to grow and do something different, but you finally have that security of, I don't have to worry about paying my rent. I don't have to worry about paying my loans. This is nice. It is definitely hard to make those big decisions, like, packing up your life and moving to a different state. So that was I think I was 5 years into practice 5 or 6 years into practice when I joined that office. So that was the first time that I had any security financially. And that was when I could first start investing in some CE courses. Because prior to that, it was like, we had Yankee Dental that rolled around once a year, and that's where I'd go. And, coughing up $400 for a course was too much. So looking at
So
it.
what did your income look like at that point? What were you finally making it?
So I want to say I probably was getting a little bit closer to, probably a little closer to 200, still
Okay.
a bit under, but somewhere in that range between probably like 170 to 200.
So what did you do now with that delta? Because your living expenses are still very low. So did you start did you start paying debt? Well, that doesn't sound like you did, but did you start to, where did you start to invest some of your money?
Yeah. So, a kind of a big, I mean, over these years now, my rent is creeping up. And so and then, like I said, I was able to refinance my loan. So
Okay.
my loan payment went from being like I said, 1,200 to now like 2,400. So as my rent went up, the loan payment went up. So then it was really kind of, paying some of that down, not much, because I didn't, you hear that like, oh, student loan debt is good debt, blah, blah, blah. And then knowing that kind of in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to do some kind of office, some kind of practice of my own. So
Yeah.
starting to kind of put something aside.
Right.
Yeah.
Put some money
for
aside for
myself.
like a down payment or whatnot, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
position. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I'm still renting at that point. And, it's like, I'd like to have a home at some point. I'd like to have, real adult things at this point.
so when did you decide, hey, I want to own?
Well, I kind of knew very early on. I mean, I would say I was probably 2.5 years into practice and I started looking into doing a startup in Boston.
Okay.
And I found a space. I didn't know anything about that was a waste of money. Yeah. You want to know where my money went? It went into that red flag city. So I found a space and I went through all the steps. I didn't get the loan or anything yet, but I had, the pre-approval and we were going through lease negotiation and all the lawyer stuff. But Boston's a very hard city to do a startup in. There's a lot of union construction, which is very expensive and not really doable with a startup budget. And long story short, the landlord showed his true colors, luckily, before we signed any papers. And I kind of walked from that deal. But that came with that was an expensive learning opportunity for sure. But that, like I said, that was maybe 2.5, 3 years into practice that I started to think I want my own thing. I want to do it my way. But at that time, and I'm glad it fell through because I would have built a 6-chair office and taken every insurance under the sun because I didn't know any better.
But you had that experience that you felt like, hey, this is different.
That was prior to this. Yeah. Or I would say this was prior to that. So it was after this kind of fell through is when I then changed jobs and moved to the other office that was the out-of-network office. So right. I hadn't had that experience yet.
Oh, okay. But so it's good you had this. So let's wrap up the Boston experience. At what point are you saying, this isn't going to be for me? And what was the draw? I know home is home, but you were attracted to Boston. You now have really laid down some roots, I think, at this point. How is it now? You got to cut those ties and now move. What was that like? What made that decision happen?
Yeah. So I think, obviously, for many people, COVID was a big turning point. We were shut down. And I remember once we realized it was going to be more than 2 weeks, I ended up packing up my car and just heading back home because 2 weeks in the middle of the city of Boston was enough for me to be like, this is weird. You can't go anywhere. You're stuck inside. And again, I had a little shoebox apartment. And, so I came home and just having, a driveway, a garage, a yard, freedom, a little bit of space. When I came back to Boston, things were still slow to ramp up and there was no traffic and you could drive. I always worked about an hour, plus outside of the city. So I always had this commute. And then now not really having a commute and being able to come home and not have to fight with Red Sox traffic and park my car. And it was really nice. And I started to get a taste of what life outside of the city would be like. And
so some big quality of life changes.
For sure. Yeah. And when things started to go back to normal, I didn't have the patience for it anymore. I was so tired of sitting in my car. I was so tired of hunting for a parking spot. All the things that, it's tough living in a city. Everything's harder. You have to bring your groceries up 5 flights of stairs, and there's no elevator because they're all old buildings. And so I started
5-story walk up. I live.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I started to think, okay, I'm never going to have the things in life I want. I'm never going to be able to have a house and a yard if I continue to live in the city. But what I loved about Boston was Boston. It was living in the city. And so it was like, well, if I move out of the city, I'm truly just picking a spot on a map and saying, I'll live here now. And it's like, I don't have any ties to that place. And like most of my friends had moved out of Boston at this point. Like they're still kind of around Boston, but the only thing tying me to the city was that I genuinely love the city, and it was my routine, and it had been my home for 15 years. And so when I was like, well, if I'm going to move out of the city, what's keeping me from moving back home? And, we live right on the lake. It's beautiful in the summer. There's so much nice outdoor space and freedom, and cost of living is a complete 180 from Boston. And I started to think, if the kind of dentistry I do and the type of office I want, it doesn't exist in my hometown. Like my hometown is, still a lot of older offices, docs, a lot of docs that are nearing retirement. And I was like, the kind of dentistry I do, it's quite common in Boston. Everybody's used to that kind of more, boutique hands-on approach, but it doesn't exist here. And I thought, wow, how nice to kind of bring that back to my hometown and, kind of carry on almost like, my dad's legacy, but in my own way. And so I started to kind of look into it. And then, like I said, it kind of came full circle when my first boss ever, who happened to be the landlord, was like, hey, I'm going to start, getting ready to retire here. And I have all the space that I don't need. He's an attorney. And he's like, you can have some of the space if you'd like. And that's kind of where wheels went into motion.
Okay. So what did you see? What did you strategize for your own practice? And then what did it materialize into?
So I knew, and I think, that was kind of the nice thing about practicing for as many years as I had prior to opening my office. I had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted. I know really well who I am as a doctor. I have no problem saying I am a restorative only doctor. I don't do extractions. I don't do root canals. I do restorative.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's my wheelhouse.
After shucking all those teeth for 3 years?
Yeah. I never said I did that shucking well. I shucked oysters better than teeth for sure.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't like it. It brought me so much stress and anxiety to extract teeth. And, I worked with people who were so fabulous at it. So to me, it was like, why would I ever take your money and subject you to an hour in my chair to like stressfully get this tooth out, when literally you can see the person in the room next door and they can get out in 5 minutes and with less trauma. So I started to just feel like it didn't feel good to me to do that.
So you're going to have a restorative only practice. You're referring out a lot of the auxiliary things. So your endos, your implants.
Yep, I don't place them. Yeah, I feel like if you can't pull teeth, you probably shouldn't place implants.
So your oral surgery, your implantology, your endodontics. Okay, so I'm not going to call it a bread and butter, but you're doing your restorative work. So
yeah, absolutely.
So that was your vision. That was what you wanted.
That was my vision. Yep. I knew I wanted I felt like the sweet spot was 4 chairs, but I wanted the ability to go to 5 if I really needed it, or if I wanted to bring in a specialist at some point.
So how many square footage did you take?
So right now, like I said, so I was able to take over a portion of the law firm. So I want to say my square footage is a little under, we have a little bit of shared space. So it's around like 1,400 square feet with some of the shared
Would you share
space.
like a reception area?
We share a front entryway. There's a optician next door. So we share a front entryway with the optician, and we have a shared restroom space in the back.
Okay, well, the restroom makes sense, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be able to expand when he fully retires to the rest of the space.
Optician?
The landlord, the attorney.
Oh, you're going to buy the building then, right?
No, it's because it's part of a plaza, so I won't be able to buy the building, but I'll be able to expand into into his space. But honestly, my rent's so cheap that like I can't even be upset about it. Yeah, so I will be able to expand into his space, and that will give us the room to grow to 5 ops if we want it. But truthfully, I hope to always keep one as my like consult photo studio.
All right. So what did you do to make day one work for you? What did you do? Talk about what did you do to build up that practice? Because you're starting from zero.
Yeah, which was crazy because, I have this following of people in Boston, and I'm like, why am I making this so much harder on
Right.
myself?
That's what I
could
mean. I
have
mean,
just,
you're
yeah,
cutting the ties. What you've spent 11 years, and you're going to have some relationship at some point. And now here you go. You're off to a brave new world. So
yeah.
what was that?
I will say I haven't done enough. That's for sure. I definitely, I need to be getting more info out about us. But prior to opening, I just started sharing my story on social media. So on Facebook and Instagram, I would try to post pretty regularly about, construction updates and, different things that we're offering. And that got a lot of leads. Most of our patients have come from social media at this point. I did do
you're doing like this is what's in the works. This is who I am. This is what we're gonna. What's the name of your practice?
Erie Dental Company.
Erie Dental Company, EDC. So we're gonna. This is what we're gonna be, and this is coming soon. And you're trying to generate a little excitement, a little buzz, right? A little word of mouth, viral word of mouth. Okay. So did you have like your phone number and website? Did you have all that stuff prior?
Yep. Yeah. We had a phone number. We did the, VoIP service. So they let you have the phone number before you even opened. We set up an email. So people could kind of request. They just replied on social media. So I kind of kept a list going.
Uh-huh.
And I think we had, maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 some people on our like VIP list.
Okay.
I didn't want to do like the, new patient special or the free whatever.
That cheapens everything.
Exactly. So what I did in my office, because I wanted to come up with something that would give people some incentive, but also require them to continue to come to us. So I did like a VIP special for our first 50 patients, where when they came in for their appointment, they would be automatically enrolled in our like whitening club. So as long as they maintained their routine cleanings and recommended dental care, they would get custom bleach trays and a free tube of bleach at every cleaning. So the only way to get that is to continue coming and being a patient here. And I think what got people excited was the transparency of the office, like getting to see that behind the scenes of the office. And that's even, one of the core values that we set is like, we are transparent, which is also why we don't work with insurance because you can't be transparent.
How many core values do you have? Because you got them written down, don't you?
I do. I don't have them off the top of my head, but transparency, detailed wellness. We probably have, I would say probably 5 or 6.
Did you do them on your own? Did somebody help you with that?
Nope, I came out with them on my own. So I brought my team on a month before we started seeing patients. I'd only intended it to be about 2 weeks, but it turned into about a month of training and team building and setting up the office. And
so what did you hire, knowing that you got maybe 50 patients to start? How many people?
Yeah, so I brought on, so I kind of set the office up. I equipped 3 chairs to start because I wanted to be ready for growth. I didn't want to have to, fumble with that. So I set up 3 chairs to start, and I set up everything with the intention of there's a good chance I might have to do everything by myself. So I made sure that I had dry shields and, relief system, like things like that I could work independently if I had to. There was a lot of, I don't know, like interviewing is so interesting. And, everybody talks about it that like nobody shows up, and it's like, I don't know, something I can't comprehend.
We had 8 interviews scheduled last week and 2 people showed up.
Yeah, it's just the strangest thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very fortunate. I had a big part of the practice is growth. Like, obviously I'm somebody who values continuing to grow and like, assessing where you can improve in life and continuing to move forward. And what I was finding was there's so many people that just like, they didn't care, like you could tell it was just a job to them. And I was very fortunate that I had a girl apply. She's an expanded functions assistant. And I have never, we didn't have FFS in Massachusetts. So I didn't know, like, I don't know anything about it. So and I told her straight up, I was like, I don't know how I feel about you placing fillings. I've been doing this 11 years and I take all the CE every year. Like, I don't know, like, we're going to have to ease into that. But what I liked so much about her was you could see that she valued growing in this profession. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that, she was just an assistant and she's done the same old thing all these years in a row. So just seeing that she had gone from assisting to FDA to training at the Scheduling Institute to being able to do like OSHA and HIPAA stuff. And she's studying some kind of like holistic Ayurveda wellness thing. So I was very impressed by how much she wanted to grow and like clearly valued learning. So I felt like right off the bat, that was a good fit. Ironically, we had gone to high school together. We didn't know each other. My high school was huge. So we weren't friends and didn't really know each other. So it's funny, like, kind of reuniting in this realm. And I did hire, she's our front desk. She's our official title as patient coordinator, but she actually came from Starbucks. She has no dental background.
Perfect.
Yeah, she
customer relations.
Exactly. Just really great with people, easy talking with people. She told me, I said, what's the shift? Because she'd been there for 6 years and she was a shift supervisor. So she had kind of grown in the company. I mean, obviously Starbucks, like, talk about benefits. Like, I can't compete with that as a startup. But she said, it didn't really matter to her. What she wanted was a career. She's 31 and she wanted to feel like she had a profession. Mm-hmm. And feel like she could continue growing. And so she's been a good fit. And honestly, her having no dental background has been a huge asset.
What did your first month look like well, let me ask you this before I get to that. That's my first question on that part. But what did you have to borrow to set up the office?
So I believe my final all in for the loan, and I went a little bells and whistle because it was like, this is my dream office. I'm only doing this once. So I think all in, I ended up around like 625,000.
625 plus the 370?
By student loan? Yeah. Student loan is still 370.
So you're over $1 million.
Yeah.
So you're $1 million in debt. Okay. Yeah. Is there any way? No. I was going to say, is there any way to combine the student into the other one, but that's not. So, okay. So now what's your monthly debt service?
So we are very fortunate that our monthly break even is not as high as I would say the average dental office. Right now our break even is, I wrote it down. It's a little over 12,000.
12,000 for the month?
For the month.
That's all that debt service?
Oh, well, so that's excluding my student loan.
Okay.
So I still am working as an associate actually in Ohio.
Okay.
So I work 3 days a week at an associateship job to pay my personal bills. So I don't have to tap in from the office.
All right. So you need 12 to keep the lights on.
We need 12 to keep the lights on. Yeah. And right now.
You're working how many days in your office? 3?
So I'm in my office 2 full days, and then I do 2 hours on Thursday morning. So 2 days and 2 hours.
Okay. And your team is good with that for their work?
They are there the rest of the week. So I want them there answering phones. I mean, there's still so much to be setting up and kind of putting, the dotting the T's or crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
How long have you been startup then? How long has it been?
So they came on in May for, like I said, about a month of training.
May 2023.
Our first patient was June. Our first month we collected. So our production was 11,355. Okay. But I did see quite a few friends and family. So our collections ended up being about 8,000. So we were at about a $3,600 deficit from breaking even.
All right. So that's your first month. So So by the way, this is being recorded in about the middle of July. So this is July 17th. And so now you got a little bit of July under your belt. Is it looking like things are trending on the up for you, or what's it look like?
Yeah. So we were, as of right now, I think we have $10,000 on the books, scheduled. So we'll see if everybody.
So month to date so far?
Correct. I think for the entire month. Yes. So everything on the month for the month is
Gotcha.
scheduled at 10,000, but we do
Okay.
still have openings. And yeah, so I'm hoping that we'll get a little bit even closer this month to the break even.
All right. So what are your concerns right now then? What are the things that what are your things that you're going to overcome? What are those things?
There's so
I have
many.
no doubt about it. If I'm buying stock, I'm buying stock in you. So
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I would say, new patients, we had 24 new patients our first month, which was pretty good. But like I said, a lot of friends and family there. So I get very nervous that I'm not doing enough, because I'm not, and I know that I'm not doing enough to generate new patients. What I'm doing for marketing is minimal at this point. Non-existent actually. And even like, I don't know why it's so hard to post something on social media, but there's not enough hours in the day for sure. So that I would say is my biggest concern is, just getting people in. I will say the people that we've had in have been wonderful. Like, we have had such great patients, and it's such a difference when people are choosing you. Like, they are coming to your office because they want to be part of your office. And so that's been really neat to actually see come to life. But yeah, so getting people in, and now, the conversation of like people realizing like, oh, they're not going to get reimbursed 100% for their cleaning. And then they call, and then they want to take themselves off the books. So it's like, you get excited because you're like, great, we have these patients calling, wonderful. We go through a whole song and dance. And, if people kind of, are concerned about like, oh, well, how much will I be reimbursed? We basically say, we don't know 100%. They usually won't cover everything. If you'd really like to know what your insurance is going to pay, we'd be happy to send you the codes and you can call them and find out. And so sometimes they do, sometimes they end up not caring, but every once in a while that turns into a call back or a text message back saying, I don't want to pay. It's too much. Take me off the schedule. So, it's kind of like a little blow to your ego, but then at the end of the day, you just have to remember, like, that's not your patient. That's the insurance. I forget who it was, but
yeah, that was a good one. That was Benjamin. Benjamin said that.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
That was spot on.
To me, like, whoa, that's a pretty good.
Yeah.
That sums it right up.
I've always to me, insurance is marketing. That's it. That's just your name and getting people in your door for no other reason than you're on a list. And it's, again, it doesn't go with my core value of transparency, but so yeah, that's a big one. And honestly, just managing, it's not my wheelhouse. It's not any of our wheelhouses. And I think I'm being direct. I think that I'm, setting goals, and it's just like, how are we not getting stuff done? Like, why is everything taking so long? So I know I have a lot to work on that. And I'm fortunate that I have friends in the industry who have managerial backgrounds who I can kind of pick their brains on things. But yeah, I just, you always hope that your team members will stay with you, but then it's like, well, am I being too lenient? Am I not being lenient enough? Like, I don't know how to walk that line.
What's your goal? What's your goal by the end of the year? Do you want to cut down your out of office hours? Come back to
Yeah. I mean, my goal, I would love by the end of the year if I could be in my office full time. I think that would be fantastic.
Full time.
Yeah. I mean, the job that I have in Ohio, they're wonderful. It's a great office. I'm happy to be a part of it. But it's a different animal. It's very crisis care. It's very like, you don't sneeze in that office without asking if the insurance is okay with it. So it's really hard to have a foot in both worlds. Mm-hmm. But, ideally, just for quality of life, I'm tired of commuting, and, that would be my ultimate goal. If it has to take longer, that's fine. Again, I'm very fortunate that it's a nice office and it's good people, and that they are even remotely, pardon me, accepting of me doing my startup while working in their office.
Well, I think the only thing I can tell you is have a big, I still love paper and pen. So if you have a big, yearly planner, and hey, this is my goal. These are where I'm going to get to. So I have a, monthly, 3 months, 6 months, year, 3 years, 5 years, right? And then, because you already talked about your vision. So remember the podcast we do with Roger Levin talked all about strategic planning. I think now you strategically plan with some thought. And so what are some action items? And, it sounds to me like, okay, you're going to need to improve your marketing and to get focused on that so that you can get to, okay, 24 new patients. But remember, it's your first month. Everybody's a new patient, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have some of those. You're going to have to start working into recall programs and managing that, and then continuing that, influx of new patients. So there's nothing better than those 24 people become your ambassadors, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned this earlier. I'm going to go back to it now. What are some of the things that you feel are those special characteristics / touch points in your office?
So one of my kind of, I would say, philosophies of care is really like walking with patients through treatment. I feel like so many times people, especially in dentistry, they just feel like stuff is told to them. They're not part of that. And you walk out with a paper that has all these numbers and letters, and you're like, I don't know what this means. It's expensive. I don't want to do it. So I think, a big thing is I take the time, even in jobs where I made no money and I couldn't make ends meet, I always took the time with patients and meet them on eye level. I'm never walking in with them laying down. We have to be eye to eye. I want them to, take responsibility for their health. And I want them to know that it's more than, a cavity or a bleeding gum. Like, this is truly health. And I think that's where I've really resonated with taking courses at the Coy Center. That's really kind of wrapped everything together for me pretty well. And probably my favorite quote, and I think that this is truly like the core of like who I am, and I think what makes me different, is John Coyce has a quote that says something to the effect of like, there's no joy in mediocre dentistry. And like, I love what I do. And like, that's why I limit myself to restorative, because I love restorative. I know that I can do a really good job for you. And, you come to see me and you're going to get the best. And I love doing it. Nothing brings me more joy than a gorgeous margin, a gorgeous finish line, beautiful anatomy. I don't care if it's 2 or 15. Like, I want it to look like a tooth, and I want it to be beautiful, and I want it to look natural. And
doesn't Coyce do a lot with like the treatment planning and the case presentation?
Yeah. So we actually ended up doing Auric software, which kind of runs through the Coyce protocol. And it's kind of like a risk assessment based approach. So it takes, like, one of the other things he says is like, you use their medical history to make that, like, what's going on with them, the hitman. And then you get to step in as the healer. And so, in my office, we do an iTero scan on every new patient, and we sit kind of knee to knee, pardon me, going over the scan together. And it's the first time that patients are able to kind of be a part of it and, kind of go into the like co-discovery process.
Co-discovery, co-diagnosis. Yep. Dr. Omer Reed, baby.
Absolutely. But, I will do a filling on a tooth. And if it's I will tell a patient, like, this looks so good. This is a 10 out of 10. Like, this is the cutest premolar. Like, I genuinely feel that. And I want people to know or like value what they're getting when they're with me in the chair. And, that we're there with them the whole process. There's been offices that I've worked at where it's like, you're done with the patient. You're like, okay, see you next time. You can go to the front desk. And then they're just kind of like wandering through the halls. It's like, no, physically every step of the way, we need to be with the patient, because they don't know. They don't know what we're talking about. They don't know where to go in your office. They don't know what chair to sit into when you bring them in the operatory. Like, you have to be there with them. And so I think that, and like I said, just the joy of dentistry and the joy of what I'm doing, and, getting to that point after starting off from maybe less joyful beginnings.
What would your advice be to, I'm going to say yourself, but to the dentists that are listening who are thinking about it, on the fence? Do I start up? Do I buy a practice? Do I add insurance? Do I start because I have to take insurance? Do I set up my startup like this, and then gradually I'm going to get out of the plant? What would your advice be to all those people?
I would say know yourself. Have a clear vision first before you do anything.
Stop. Know yourself, have a clear vision.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. From all the people I've spoken to, I don't think enough people understand themselves for sure because they're too busy in that other point about what everybody else is doing on social media and how everybody
Yeah.
else has it all figured out, like you learned, right? In your class, in your biochemistry class. And the other part of that, right, is know yourself. And what was the second one?
Have a vision.
Have a vision.
Yeah.
So keep going. That's great stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's really the core of it, because ultimately that's how you make, when I'm deciding what equipment I wanted in my office, it went back to those things. What's my vision for this office? What do we want to be known for? And who am I? Like I said, I'm very confident in who I am as a doctor right now. I wasn't that way 5 years. 5 years ago, if somebody was like, no, I want you to pull that tooth, I'd be like, okay, fine. And I'd hate every minute of it. I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm not going to. So I think just knowing and knowing it's okay to not be everything to everyone. And I think that
can't be all things to all people.
Yeah. I think gone are the days of, and they don't have to be. I mean, there are people that do it well, but you don't have to be the general dentist that does everything and sees every patient. Like, not everybody's meant for, there's this like scarcity mindset of like, I have to have them all. There's not enough. Like there are plenty, and it's okay to wait for the right people. And it's okay if not everybody likes you, which was a big thing. Like I am very much I need you to like me person.
That's all.
Yeah. And so that was a lot of like sleepless nights, worried filled nights, about how something would go. And at the end of the day, it was just like, I'm not the right lid for their pot. We're just not meant to be doctor and patient. So, but it takes the right time.
Lid for their pot. That's I might steal that one. I like that.
Yeah, you're welcome to.
All right. Well, great advice. I'm going to ask you a final question. You're probably ready for it since you listened to the show. So
this was the most stressful part, was this question that's coming up here.
There you go. I like what I've had fun with the last probably 5 or 6 that I recorded. Most of them were a little off guard, and then I just said, just give me the first thing that comes to your mind. And it was funny because don't worry about it being, relevant or a representation of your intellect or whatever. Just because I think it's so much easier when it comes right off the top. What would be your answer if you could go back in time anywhere, any place? Where would you go?
Yeah. So like I said, this was like a weirdly stressful question. And I thought like, oh, well, where would I go back in my own past? And then I was like, you know what? I probably wouldn't, because ultimately these are all the things that led me to this point. So I don't need to go back to my own past. But
you're in Boston. Don't you want to hang out with Sam Adams? Don't you want to like...
That's true. Yeah. I would definitely go back. And I honestly was like, I don't even know when this would have been, but like, I would go back to a time where people did their own gardening. They made their own clothes, like just back to that simpler time where people were more in control of their day-to-day life. There wasn't all this like technology stuff and all these other demands, pardon me.
Like Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would love nothing more than to just have a big old farm and go out and live off the land and, just have it be simple, where your days spent mostly outside and like, I don't know, that's just what you do.
Perfect. Perfect answer. Right. Makes sense. It's more about, for you in that situation, is the experience of living in those circumstances and freeing up all that mental energy that's wasted on all that other nonsense.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you very much. So we are going to, promise me you'll call me in November, and let's do an update and let's let people know how you're doing. You'll be 6 months in, and let's put it on tape and let's let people know how you've overcome the next obstacle.
Sounds good.
That's right, baby. It's exciting. You're just such a winner, and I can't wait. I can't wait.
Well,
I think so many people can learn from you. So your story is inspiring. Your road is not an easy road by any stretch, and very few people I've spoken to have had that much struggle in their private practice too. So I just, I mean, you have to have like you said, I'm comfortable. I know who I am. And now that'll propel you, because that's always worked before. So
Yep. Yeah. We
Trust
don't need
your
the
gut.
highlight reel. We just need the real.
Trust your gut. That's right.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the other stuff. It's all background noise. So thank you again. I appreciate you very much, and
Thank
promise to.
you.
And I will put send me a little sheet with any information you want to share, like your contact number, where they can reach EDC, Erie Dental. What was it? Erie Dental Center?
Erie Dental Company. Erie Dental Co.
Erie Dental Company. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, Erie Dental Company. You're going to have a big logo. You're going to have mugs. Everybody gets a free coffee mug. All right.
Thank you, Sonny. This has been fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee for Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.